made it hard. Wow. He put him on the deck. He stared at Wesley Johnson, and then he hit the
three. James, please don't do this.
I just had the best year of my career.
James Harden was not in attendance for the Sixers practice today.
Which team should pursue Harden?
Well, first of all, respectfully, no one should pursue him.
James Harden arriving in Colorado to technically join his team may be different than just assuming Harden is going to become a full-fledged member of this organization again.
James Harden could go to a lot of places, but somebody actually pursuing him because of Houston, Brooklyn, now Philadelphia, I can't justify anybody going pursuing him.
The Clippers have been on again, off again, talking with the Sixers for months about a James Harden trade. They've talked again recently, but there's been no movement. The Sixers are asking for a lot to trade James Harden. They want to get back either a player that could help them now or the assets that they could use to go get that player.
James Harden just set off a firestorm. After skipping out on the team's media day and the first day of training camp, everyone was left wondering whether or not he would actually show up to camp at all. Considering Harden had already opted into his player option, regardless of backdoor deals, he is required to report to training camp or face consequences. Hey, what's happening, everyone? This is Swish Culture.
I think James has to be careful because the NBA doesn't need him no more.
On Tuesday, there was an announcement from Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, who said that Harden would be showing up to camp the next day. What wasn't certain at the time was whether or not he would be at practice as a full participant. Well, Harden did in fact show up and did practice with the team. The news report does go on to say that Harden is still upset with the Sixers about how they handled the potential trade deal with the Clippers, and there are still some issues to be sorted out. Despite practicing, Harden has no desire to play for the Sixers, but he also doesn't want to be punished by the league. James Harden and Daryl Morey have always had a really good relationship from back in Houston, which continued when Harden wanted out of Brooklyn. It was Morey who facilitated his move to the Sixers. Minute by minute, this is looking worse for Harden as he's basically burning bridges from Houston to Brooklyn and now Philadelphia, as well as what's become more than a general manager-player relationship between him and Daryl Morey. There's a lot to unpackage here regarding Harden attempting to force his way out of a third team, but before we get to that, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Swish Culture for the most analytical and entertaining NBA content. So without further delay, let's get to it. Seems like another Ben Simmons fiasco, but this is a little different. For one, Harden's teammates are actually fond of him and want him to return to the team. They consider him their brother and support him while maintaining their loyalty to the Sixers. Ben Simmons, on the other hand, was at odds with Embiid, and despite his hefty contract, was actually unplayable. The Sixers most definitely want to keep Harden on the team, but he wants no part of the relationship with Daryl Morey. By this point, I assume most of you have heard what James Harden said about Morey and why this situation got out of hand in the first place. After that video of Harden calling Morey a liar went viral, people thought Harden was upset because Morey promised him a max extension this offseason, something which didn't come to fruition. It wouldn't be surprising considering Harden dropped 21, 11, and 6 last year, shooting 44% from the field and 39% from three, all while leading the league in assists. The problem with that theory, however, is the fact that at the end of the day, those are regular season statistics. The Sixers aren't looking for what James Harden can do in the regular season. They're looking for a player who's not going to choke in the playoffs. And last season, that's exactly what he did. The Sixers got knocked out of the second round by the Boston Celtics, who didn't even win the Eastern Conference. That put them at best third in the East, which might be related to why he wanted out of Philly to begin with. Harden had great performances in games 1 and 4, putting up 45 and 42 points respectively. His other games were not very good, however, but his game 7 was an absolute stinker. His scoring didn't even make it into double figures in the 40 minutes he was on the floor, and to top it all off, he registered a -30 overall. Still, the lack of a max contract isn't what upset Harden. It turns out that Morey had in fact promised Harden it was okay to opt into his contract and he would trade him before the season started, as Harden wanted. After some discussions between the Sixers and Clippers, the teams were at an impasse and trade talks were shut down. It was then that Harden went off on Morey. One could argue that at 34 years old, Harden isn't getting any younger and sees his window for winning a championship drastically closing. After losing to the Celtics, the team fired Doc Rivers and replaced him with former Raptors head coach Nick Nurse and wanted to run it back with the same team. Harden doesn't see it happening and thinks his best chance to win a championship is with the Clippers. With all the news coming out about this saga, I'm questioning some of the information out there, including some of the statements made by Stephen A. Smith about Harden running his mouth and talking himself out of a max contract from another team. On top of that, the team that Harden wants to go to, the Clippers, have apparently reached their limit. While they are still talking to the Sixers up to the present, there is currently no traction in those talks. They are unwilling to increase their offer to the 76ers for James Harden and are literally watching to see the situation in Philadelphia get so much out of control that the Sixers will come crawling back to take their offer, which is supposedly the best offer they've received from any team. What makes that even worse is that the only other team that was genuinely interested in James Harden were the Knicks, and even they are no longer interested in pursuing him. The Sixers say they are looking for another player that would be of the same caliber as Harden to keep them in championship contention, or at least young talent that would allow them to trade for such a player from a third team. So, which team has a player as talented as Harden that is looking to send the player to a contender? Dallas? The Raptors? OKC? I see rumors of a trade with Miami. However, I doubt the Sixers are going to make such a trade if their goal is to remain competitive. Such a deal would include Tyler Hero and likely Kyle Lowry. I don't think Miami would be too hard to sell on that deal, but the fit could be in question. The Sixers, however, aren't trying to create a more difficult path to a championship, so their trade partner most definitely has to come from the West. That being said, if none of the above teams has talent equivalent to Harden available, then the focus would have to shift to young talented players, which leads to another team. How about the Houston Rockets? Apparently, James Harden almost returned to Houston and that they would have signed him to a max contract until Harden opened his mouth. Here's how that allegedly went down.
I got tipped off last week by a very reliable source about something that happened in Houston. The Houston Rockets were talking to James Harden, thinking about bringing him back after Ime Udoka was brought there. This is what I was told. He actually talked himself out of a max deal because he went in there talking about how he wanted to return to being that scoring champion. And Ime Udoka and them were like, nah, we ain't trying to have that here. We building something a little bit different. Had he come in there and said the right things,
They would have given him the max contract.
they would have gave him a max 4-year deal.
Keep in mind, this is Stephen A. Smith, and sometimes his sources are not so credible. Unfortunately, it might take a while before James Harden can get in front of a mic and say his piece about what actually went down. But let's say this were true. There are so many questions I would like to ask. Would James Harden, who just sent the relationship with the Sixers management up in flames, really put his foot in his mouth and jeopardize his chances at signing a max contract elsewhere? Would he even consider going back to the Houston Rockets? Why would the Rockets ownership want to go back to a strategy that failed numerous times in the past? That said, I doubt the Rockets were seriously interested in trading away their young guys for James Harden. The team has the young talent, but who could effectively lead that team to a championship alongside Harden? Fred VanVleet? Not to mention the required supporting cast. The Rockets would have to completely change their identity, especially considering the current atmosphere in the Western Conference. The Suns have KD and Booker, Luka and Kyrie are on the Mavs, LeBron and AD with the Lakers, Jokic and Murray on the Nuggets. The Pelicans with Ingram, CJ McCollum and a healthy Zion could be the #1 seed. Plus, the Kings are looking like they could be the wild card in the West. Not to mention the Golden State Warriors with the Splash Brothers, Draymond Green, and now Chris Paul, Harden's old partner, is in the fold. That's 8 teams I just listed, and I didn't even mention the surging Memphis Grizzlies. Who is Houston knocking out of the playoffs with a Harden one-man show? That would be suicide for both the Rockets and Harden to chase what the team had 4 years ago. I'll have to call BS on Stephen A's comment unless Harden wasn't genuinely interested and torpedoed those talks because he wanted to play with the Clippers, who despite all the talent on that roster, somehow just can't manage to put it together and stay healthy enough to compete. With this in consideration, Harden's motivations might be a bit misguided. Ever since Kawhi won with the Raptors in 2019, he's missed a grand total of 85 games. His career hasn't been much to talk about outside of load managing. Prior to the Clippers signing Russell Westbrook, it was clear the team needed a point guard. While Westbrook should have fulfilled that need, his inability to be a scoring threat highlighted his diminishing assets, as his game just wasn't the same without the same level of explosive athletic ability. He's forced to rely more on shooting to keep up his productivity, but the thing with Westbrook is that he never had great shooting when he came into the league, and it just never got any better. He had great mid-range game, and even that suffered as his career progressed. His first 3 years in the league saw him average 58% in the mid-range. His last 3, just 36%. I won't even mention his shot percentage from three-point range, as that number is abysmal. It's safe to say the Westbrook that once was is long gone. Hang him out to dry. He's washed. If they're going to compete for a championship, they're going to need a guard that can contribute and stay on the court down the stretch. On the other hand, it doesn't seem the Clippers are willing to give up what these Sixers are looking for. More specifically, they're not willing to let go of Terrence Mann, a 6'5" shooting guard / small forward, whom the Clippers drafted 48th overall in the 2019 NBA draft. Moreover, the Clippers can only offer 2 first-round picks. Another player they likely offered in a trade instead of Mann is Bones Highland, who was drafted by the Nuggets but was traded to the Clippers for their 2024 and 2025 first-round picks, hence the reason that the Clippers can only trade their 2028 and 2030 first-round picks to the Sixers to acquire Harden. The exact offer the Clippers made hasn't been disclosed anywhere, but the market for Harden is practically non-existent. No other team really wants him, so the Clippers are content to wait to see how things play out. So at the end of the day, Harden did return to play for the Sixers, and while there wasn't any drama his first day back, the consensus is that he's not really present at training camp in earnest. He's there to make the Clippers uncomfortable enough to be motivated enough to trade him. That means we're likely going to see a few more developments here over the course of the next few days of training camp and into the regular season. The Sixers waited until the trade deadline to move past Ben, so it remains to be seen what will happen in Harden's case. In Ben's case, once he decided he was done, he didn't play a single game of basketball for the Sixers, at one point even citing mental health issues. Obviously, this did a number on his career, and even though he still has a role on a team, that entire debacle is still causing issues for Ben, as he doesn't have nearly the same amount of perceived value he did before. Teams view him as toxic, and what saved him thus far is the fact that he's still fairly young at 27 years old. Considering Harden is much older, the fact that no other teams are interested is a huge red flag for the future of his career. He has a lot of baggage and constantly adding more. He's going to be old enough to retire in a few years, and the league sure as heck won't miss him. If he's not careful, this will likely be the last time Harden signs a contract worth anything. Don't be shocked if in the next 2 years Harden is completely out of the league. Let me know in the comments if you think James Harden made the right move by calling out Morey, and also if you think there's a team that would be better suited to have him. Post your thoughts in the comments below, but before that, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all your notifications so you don't miss any of my latest uploads. Until next time, swish!